Hey, what's going on, all you NASCAR drivers and fans that are not sleeping after that race? My name is Ryan Peters, and this is the post-race show here on The Grueling Truth. If you happen to watch today's race, well, we're going to break it down for you. It was not much to break down. As you can tell, Joe is either still sick and thought that show would be his remedy, but unfortunately it does not look like it is the case. But again, this is the Grueling Truth NASCAR show. The show is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet to find a online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. So, Joe, Steve, how are you guys doing this Sunday evening?
I'm doing very well. Got about a 3.5 hour nap in a couple hours ago. Feeling rejuvenated. I'm over the COVID monkey herpaganosyphilades, whatever I had. That is gone. Starting to rejuvenate. So I'm doing pretty well.
Steve, you got to be doing better than Joe regardless of all that. How are you?
No doubt. I'm doing fine. No problems. I don't share your sentiments about being a sleepy, boring race.
Of course you don't, Steve.
But, of course, my driver was contending for the win. Where the fudge were the JGR boys?
My driver actually was practicing his donuts on lap 6, so that was kind of cool. But let's go ahead and get into the race. The winner for the first time in his career was Tyler Reddick. A lot of us thought he would be in victory lane much earlier than he has, but this is his first win. He's been contending a few times, and oddly enough has hit a stretch to where he hasn't been as competitive in the last 4 or 5 races, but finds his way into victory lane. We'll go ahead and give you the rest of the top 10. Obviously, Tyler Reddick was the winner. Chase Elliott was in second place. Kyle Larson in third, followed by Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. Then Chris Buescher was in 6th. Austin Cindric 7th. Michael McDowell 8th. AJ Allmendinger 9th. And somehow, someway, Kevin Harvick finds a way to sneak into the top 10 again. So, Joe, I know your feelings on it, so we'll wait for your opinion. Steve, was today's race a good race?
Well, I mean, I think I said in the notes or the text that we were shooting off about this earlier, it was a segmented good race. There were parts that were good and parts that were mundane, and I think that's not a testament to the race as much as it is to the quality of road course racers there are in this sport. I think this car's laying out the pretenders and the contenders. It's a good, solid car. It's a good road course car. I think those that can drive road courses are going to excel and do extremely well. I thought the battle between Elliott and Reddick was as fun as anything to watch. And then if they did spend some time going back and showing some melee going on between like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and they were banging doors and knocking heads with each other too. But definitely, you were watching the technical expertise of Reddick and Elliott. I think Kyle Larson got distance to the point to where, he came out and admitted post-race that I'm not as good a road course driver as you think I am. I'm certainly not as good as Chase Elliott is. And Chastain probably in the same boat. So I think these cars are, again, we keep going back to the car, and I'm going to stick with the car as being the star of the year and the MVP of the year. I thought the car did its job, and I think it exposed really how far we thought road course driving had come in NASCAR, and really how far it hasn't come. And this car is exposing it. And so I learned a lot. I think the star now for the rest of the year is going to be the final 3 playoff spots. And you still have drivers that have not won that need to win to get in. And I think it's set itself up for, what's to come with Atlanta and Daytona, 2 more road courses. So I didn't find the race to be boring at all. I mean, it wasn't Bristol, in the middle of a short track season, but it really opened your eyes as to what this car, how developed the car is, and how underdeveloped the road course drivers are in this sport. And I took different technical aspects away from this race than just door banging.
All right, Steve, appreciate it. Now, Joe, how do you feel? Was this a good race?
No. No, I don't think so. And I think that
That's
the
being
last,
blunt.
yeah, no, that's it. That's all I got. Um,
How do you
you are
top
welcome,
that?
sir. You are welcome.
That's why you're here, for your color expertise. They don't call
So
him the best in the business for nothing.
I think that the last couple road course races, Steve, I will agree with you. I think this car, the next gen car, has really put a spotlight on who knows how to drive on road courses and who doesn't. I agree with that. Here's the problem. Uh, there's only about 7 drivers that can drive on road courses adequately, and we've seen them kind of hold true every road course race this year in this car, and that's what we'll see the next couple road course races. And if NASCAR can't figure out how to change the ability for these drivers to pass other than braking into 1 or 2 turns on a road course, we're going to continue to get terrible road course racing throughout the season and the years to come. I am starting to think, I used to get pumped up when there was only 2 road courses on the schedule. I used to get pumped up as all get out to see some right turns. I think at this point, my opinion is maybe we have too many road courses at this point. We got 2 more. I'm already burnt out on them. The last 2 races to me have been absolute dog shit. This race was absolute dog shit. The only great thing that came out of this race was Tyler Reddick getting his first win, and that is awesome. I've been kind of a closet fan of his, so I'm happy he got his first win. But I don't see how you move forward from the terrible racing that we've seen in the last couple of road courses.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to echo off of that is obviously the old adage was this is just a bunch of drivers turning left. So now you've taken that away, you've added drivers turning right. And I agree with you, Joe. I think it's been really bad racing. And I think the biggest part of that is they added the new wider tire, bigger tire, so that it would do better on road courses. And that takes away some of the sliding and things that we've seen back in the day going on to road courses. And we used to have really good competition. But I think more than anything, when you take away the sliding and you don't add the enough horsepower, because most cars that race on road courses are higher than 670 horsepower. And I think if we were to increase the horsepower to where, when they're shifting, it actually means something, then maybe going down 5 to 10 miles per hour. I think that's what we're missing in this type of setup, because you only had 4 gears. There was such a big difference between first, second, and third, fourth gear in the old car. Now you got 5 gears, and I just don't think there's enough of a difference, through years 1 through 5 to where we see the ability to make mistakes like we do on the ovals that we've seen so far this year. And I think the ultimate way to say, is this an exciting race, was Tyler Reddick's own son was in a coma. They couldn't even wake him up to celebrate the race because that's how boring it was.
But
Granted,
did you hear the comment? Did you hear the commentary that came with that?
that he's a Chase
He was
Elliott
ignoring his dad because he was pissed off that he beat Chase Elliott,
fan. Yeah,
who was his
that is
favorite
true.
driver.
Right. He does wear Chase Elliott gear when he
At the
goes to the
races.
racetrack. Yeah.
You
So
know
once
what?
his dad checked out, he did too.
Fuck you, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, Joe, your comments. You some rebuttal questions then, following up, if I may. Um, I think you started to touch on this, and it's a question we may want to ponder Wednesday when we're not just doing post race, but have we hit and pushed beyond the limit of how many road course races should be in NASCAR? Or do we just say, hey, get with the program? Here we are, learn to drive road courses. That's now part of our landscape, and we're going to do that. So and let's address that, or address it now, Joe, to some degree. But
I'll address that. I think we're over the limit. I thought two a year is a good number. I think we're trying to do something with road courses now, and I think NASCAR seems other forms of auto racing like F1, IndyCar getting the numbers that they are, and they're trying to get some transitional cross fans from those other sports by putting them on the road, and I get that, putting them on the road more. And even talking about a street race in Detroit, which is fucking ridiculous. But, I think NASCAR is an oval track circuit. that's what the base fans of NASCAR want to see. That's what I want to see. I like watching road course races when it's, when it's, new and exciting, and you don't get to see it every 2 weeks. We just watched the boring road course race 2 weeks ago, and right here, slapped right in our face again, we get another boring road course race, and then we're going to have one in a couple more weeks, and it's just too much is too much. And I'll say this, not to drive on. I spent a good number of years living in Alaska, and one of the first things I did when I lived in Alaska was I watched the Northern Lights, and I thought that they were the greatest thing I've ever seen in the world. By the time I left Alaska, I didn't even give them a second thought, and that's what road course racing is becoming now for NASCAR fans when you're shoving in these terrible races in our face every couple of weeks. So,
Hey, Steve.
Ryan?
I'm gonna go off of that a little bit differently as well. I think that I don't know if we've reached the pinnacle yet of what we have road course number wise, because this is the first year we've had this car. I'm not convinced that short tracks may not be broken with this new car based on what we've seen out of Martinsville and a couple short tracks. So I think there's still some tinkering to do, and I think if they do some things that possibly change the car, maybe we do have a better product. But for what we have right now, if this is what they're going to stick their guns to, then yeah, I mean, I would like to see less road courses and add more mile and a halves. But if you were to ask me that last year, I would have said the exact opposite.
Well,
good point.
and again, it's a good point, very valid point. To rebuke one more time, right now, I look at you and say, "Hey, these cars are adjustable. They can adjust these cars. They can change cambers. They can change shock packages. They can change brake sizes. They can put tape on air ducts. They can adjust the cars. The question right now is, are the drivers adjustable? And I think the drivers better learn to be just as adjustable as the cars are, because this is one car. They're going to drive this car every race. It's not like the old days where, RCR had a stable of 40 cars per driver, three of them set up for every type of track there is. This is one car they're taking with a backup, and they're making the adjustments at the track based on if they're going super speedway, intermediate, short track, or road course. And right now, I think the cars are a lot more adjustable than the drivers, and it might seem a little boring to you. Again, I go back to, I thought the race at the end between Reddick and Elliott was good for a while, and then Elliott just ran himself out trying to catch him. Really, only one mistake cost Elliott that race. I mean, he just went in too hard, and I think it was turn 6 or something like that. He went in and braked too late and blocked his tires every second. That just gave him a chance, Reddick a chance to go even and then pull ahead. Other than that, I think Elliott could have held him off for the rest of the time. So I think right now the younger drivers are more adjustable. That's why you're seeing guys like Busch and Truex and Logano, and they're not a factor anymore. I mean, Hamlin, the older drivers, Harvick, those guys aren't even a factor in these races. And here, I picked Truex as a winner. And I just say I'm not doing that ever again in road course racing. What's the next one we go to? Indy?
Yeah.
Now, last year, Indy was a hoot, bang, holler because they had those damn rumble strips in, and they were tearing the damn rumble strips out and bouncing all over the track in the air. Going airborne on these things, and that Indy was a hoot to watch. Now, they've taken the rumble strips out as you go there, and this heavier car, this next-gen car, we'll see what it does. It's probably going to be a lot more tame than it was last year, so like Ryan said, I'm willing to give it a year and see what modifications they make to the car and what modifications the drivers make to themselves. They have these simulators now. They better get their ass on road course simulators. And I think what a lot of them ought to do is just get their ass back in go-karts and go learn to race go-karts again and learn to turn right and turn right with aggression. I mean, Reddick just was very aggressive today. I mean, he just drove right past Elliott, and Elliott didn't make a bad enough mistake that he lost the race. Reddick took it from him when the opportunity presented itself, and it's as simple as that. There was nothing wrong with Elliott's car. He just got outdrove on the last 17 laps of that race. So I'm gonna give it a year. I think we should probably add no more road courses for the time being. I don't know which one you'd eliminate if you eliminated one, because every one of the tracks. I mean, Road America, what a weekend! You know, the camping out there, the parts that Rutledge Wood did on the town of Elkhart. I didn't realize that Steve Kinzer owned the big hotel there. You know, I learned a lot about Elkhart Lake, and the Kinzer family owned and they pretty well brought the race there to Elkhart. The Kinzer family did, apparently, and they used to run it on the streets right through Elkhart Lake. Then they eventually built Road America, the course, and did it there. And it's a big celebration festival. There were probably more campers than there were haulers and cars at that track. So it was a great weekend. I thought, how are they ever going to replace Daytona in the Firecracker 400? Well, I think they've come as close to a celebration as they can pretty well do. And I did a good job with it.
Yeah.
It was not a great race to watch if you were, you know, Elliott or Reddick wasn't one of your drivers, because it was those two and then everybody else. But there were battles to be fought back there. Bubba Wallace was putting on a show for us once again. The only thing they did was mute his mic so nobody could hear what he was saying. But overall, another day in NASCAR with this new car in the first year. I'll give it some time before I'm going to pass that kind of serious judgment.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm not going to give it any time. I've already passed judgment. To answer your question, Steve,
you young kids.
Obviously, if you're going to get rid of a road course race, I would say throw out Sonoma right now.
There's talk they're going to throw out Indy because they're going to go back to the oval. They're talking about going back to the oval next year.
I'd be okay with that too. You know, we can wait all we want for the new car. That I think the problem is, you know, just like you said, Steve, this new car highlights driving ability on road courses, I think, and what we've seen the last couple of road courses, not to beat a dead horse, is we've seen drivers up front that know how to drive on the road. And I told Ryan this earlier. I watched the Xfinity race yesterday. The Xfinity race was great. The truck race at Sonoma was great, but both races,
different cars,
and the next gen cars have been absolutely terrible. You know, I take that Xfinity race yesterday over today's race, you know, any day of the week. I mean, it was a significantly better race to watch.
Well, Joe, look at Larson's performance in the Xfinity car yesterday and his performance today.
Exactly.
I mean, he was not a factor. Even though he finished third, he wasn't a factor in that race. Yesterday, he was a factor.
Right.
He factored in a different breed of cars.
And he made a shifting and braking mistake and
cost him
in one of the turns, and Ty Gibbs capitalized on it and won the race. But you know, it's still the racing as a whole throughout that whole track was better. You know, it's just, you know, I'm passing judgment right now as we stand right now with these cars. I don't want to watch these cars on another road course again this year.
Well, you got what? 2 more? 3 more? Yeah. You actually got 3 more.
Yeah, and I'm not excited about it, but I am excited about Atlanta next week.
Well,
yeah.
The only thing I've heard this multiple times out of both you guys, and say that older guys, maybe this separates guys that aren't doing good on these road course races. I think the Toyotas clearly don't have the right configuration. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and Denny Hamlin have proven for decades at least that they know how to race on road courses, but Toyota has not figured out how to race this new car on a road course. So I'm definitely not going to go down that road and say that these older guys don't know how to road course race, because you don't just throw out their whole entire pedigree for 1 year of a brand new car. So I'm not willing to go that far with it yet. I mean, yes, AJ Allmendinger got 9th today and was competitive the other one, and then literally wrecked himself out the last race. Well, nobody's going to argue his pedigree and say that he forgot how to road course race after Sonoma. So
yeah, but where did Dinger start? Dinger started at the back of the pack, didn't he? Didn't he have an issue? He had to go back to the back of the pack to start.
I don't remember. I know Kyle did, yes, but I don't know.
I know Kyle changed the motor. Kyle changed the motor. For God's sake.
No, he changed it. He wasn't his motor, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought it was his motor, they said.
But I will say this: I think that these cars actually may be more in depth for a couple of the Rovals that we have coming up, and I think those the one Roval that we have coming up, the Indy Road Course doesn't have enough banking to me to be considered a Roval, but I am interested to see what it's like on that because you're having, again, a car that does really good on mile and a half, which we saw at Charlotte. Charlotte was a great race, probably one of the best races, if not the best race this year. Now you're going to add road course element to it. That could be one hell of a race, and we'll end up seeing. But you kind of mentioned too, and I didn't expect this topic to go 20 minutes. Maybe that's why that's how exciting this race was. But you mentioned bigger brake packages too. Those do also change things as well. That make it easier for these drivers to brake, and it takes less error out. Joe, you mentioned Kyle Larson missed a shift. Why is that? Because they have age pattern shifters, and those do add an opportunity to screw something up in an Xfinity car. So, again, the more things you take away to make it easier for the driver, a lot of times it ends up in worst racing because there's less chance of error. So, and that's typical in most sports. But moving on, Steve, you talked about this earlier. This is the 13th different winner now, and there's only 16 spots left. Or 16 spots before we go into the playoffs. Kind of looking into that, Blaney is fourth in the playoff standings right now, but he doesn't have a win. But obviously, point-wise, is way high. Also, Truex is ninth, but doesn't have a win. And then Bell is 20 points to the good. Harvick is now 20 points below the 16-point cutoff line. In your opinion, is this the greatest regular season since we started the playoff format?
Well, to me, it's more exciting than was it 2 years ago when Harvick won 9 races and went into the playoffs like 60 points ahead of everybody on playoff points. So, you got 5 drivers with 13 points right now, and then 2 more with 12 points that are going to go into it. So it's going to negate anybody's advantage. I mean, you got guys right now like Elliott or Chastain or anybody that's got 13 points. Logano, that could be eliminated out of the first round if they're not careful. The cushion's not going to be there this year for the playoffs.
I asked about the regular season. I want to know about the race.
Yeah, I'm reverting back to that. I think this is probably, since the playoff format has gone, the most dynamic because of the multiple winners and because these slots are going away. And right now, the excitement's going to be for the rest of the next 8 races is the 3 slots left. And how are they going to play out, on points or on wins?
Do you think that parity is better for the sport, or do you think it needs at least one guy dominating?
I can't see how it would be worse for the sport. I think the parity is always a good thing. If you look at the NCAA basketball tournament, we enjoy it more when there's not one clear-cut team like the 76 Hoosiers that were undefeated and just were going to knock the socks off anybody come hell or high water. Or a Duke squad that was going to do the same. When you go into it, maybe like last year, you got Gonzaga, which was a little bit better. Yeah, but right now, you don't have a dominant driver in this sport. You got, 5 drivers with 2 wins? And that's it. And then you got another 8 more or something that have a 1 win, and then you got 3 spots left on points. None of the points guys are safe any longer, and they know it. They know none of them are safe anymore. Now with just 3 slots available, with 8 races to go, 2 of which are helter-skelter racetracks. I'm going to throw Atlanta in there, but certainly Daytona. I mean, and it's going to end on Daytona. So if you're counting on getting a win in Daytona to get yourself into the playoffs, good luck. So, I think the way the points are falling out, the parity is much better for the sport. I wasn't disappointed. My driver got beat, but it didn't break my heart. It was a great race. He ran strong. And, I like the pit strategy that they employed rather than just going for the playoff points. Elliott wanted to start, and Elliott said it best when they did a post-race interview with him in that with this car now on the shorter tracks and on the road courses, you're going to see track position become the most dominant and important thing. Now, not fuel mileage, not driver capability. It's going to end up being track position. And what are you willing to sacrifice to maintain your track position and not give up positions? Because anybody that did that, we learned last week when Everybody but Elliott came into the pits, lost their track position. They couldn't catch him. Again, this year, today, same thing. Guys went back, came in, and waited to get the playoff points. And then Blaney was one. Spent his whole life trying to get back up into the top 10, and never was a contender for the race when he had a damn good car. So, yeah, I think it's much better.
Joe, I'll ask you the same two questions. Is this the greatest regular season since they incorporated the playoffs? And do you think NASCAR having parity is better for the sport?
Well, I don't want to call it the greatest regular season. I would certainly say this is good, but I mean we live in the moment, so it's I mean right now, yeah, it's the greatest regular season that I've seen, and I think we get 16 different. I think the probability of getting 16 different winners at this point is very high, and when you look at Ryan Blaney, that's right now 112 points to the good. Staying in the playoffs, I don't think those 112 points to the good do him any good right now without a win. So, his decision today to get playoff points and stay out and get a stage win instead of coming in and taking a pit and getting on the right pit cycle to put himself in contention, I think was a terrible choice. Now, I think his team probably knew he didn't have much of a chance to win the race anyway based on how he was driving in his car. But, I don't think Ryan Blaney gets in. I don't think Truex gets in. I don't think Bell gets in. I don't think Harvick gets in. Any of them who are right there on the bubble. I think Harvick is the first one out right now. I don't think any of them get into the playoffs without a win. It's just I don't see it happening. So and Chase Elliott's going to win the season point standings. So that's right now I think the only way if you're in the top 25 with a win. Unless you don't have one and somehow you're leading in points, is the only way you get into the playoffs right now. Without a win, is by winning the regular season points. So, I think this very well could be the greatest regular season since the induction of the playoffs. What was your other question? I forgot.
Is parity good for the sport of NASCAR?
Yeah,
now we've never had more parity in my mind since I've been watching.
I think so, and I agree with Steve on that. I mean, everybody likes to watch a dynasty per se, or in any sport for a while, especially the fans. But and watch somebody be dominant or a team be dominant. That is good for a sport for a time. But we've had that, and we've had that for a long time in this sport. We had that with Kyle Larson last year. Kyle Larson dominated last year, and he won a championship last year in dominating fashion. I think. What he win like 4 races
10.
In a row. 10 races.
He
4 or 5 in a row last year.
He would have won 5 in a row, but blew a tire.
He blew a tire. That's right. That's a pretty dominating season. 10 win. 4 in a row, almost 5 in a row. Yeah, and it's fun to watch.
Most laps ever led.
And it's fun, but you get a couple of years where there's 16 different winners, and you don't know who's going to win each week. And we have 3 or 4 teams that are putting out quality drivers and competing. We have a couple good years for that. Then that makes a dominating season by one of these drivers that much sweeter. So I think it's very good for NASCAR what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what needs to happen is these guys with a win that, maybe only have one win. Joe, I agree with your point completely with Ryan Blaney. It's idiotic for you to play stage points without a win. There's no reason at this point to be playing stage points. Maybe earlier in the season or something like that. But for whatever reason on these road courses, the stages, and hopefully they get rid of them because they're not needed in road course races, but there's no reason for Ryan Blaney and his crew to keep him out, to make him lose 15 positions two laps later. So I agree with that completely. The only thing that I would add is, you mentioned this, dynasties are great for sports in terms of viewership. Most people want to have something to root against, whether it was the Celtics and the Lakers, whether it was the Bulls, whether it's been LeBron James's teams. Enter whatever, the Yankees in the 90s. Most people want to have something to root against. And I think come playoff time, if your driver's out of it, you want to have somebody to root against. I thought Ross Chastain was going to be that guy. I literally thought it was everybody, oh, okay, my driver's not in it, so I'm going to root against Ross Chastain. I thought he was going to be the villain. Then he almost cried, so that kind of took it away, and people started feeling sorry for him a little bit. But I do think for the regular season, I think parity is great. But I would not mind if a driver going into the playoffs really took it, by the horns and decided that him and his crew just come out of nowhere, because we've seen that in playoff runs and other sports. But it'll be really interesting if somebody ends up doing that in the playoffs.
Yeah. Happy 4th of July to you, Bruce. We appreciate your comment.
Yeah, thank you. So that pretty much wraps up the race for today. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to it?
No, I think I think we pretty much covered it. I think Steve took a little bit more away from this than we did, which I think is fine. I'm glad that Steve enjoyed watching the race today. At least one of us three did. I always enjoy watching racing, but it just ended with I am disappointed with what we had today.
Well, Joe, I've learned to look at it this way. I learned to make mountains out of molehills, where I think you just want to take your foot and squash a molehill so the mole can't get out anymore and knock it down. I'm saying let's build that molehill into a mountain. And while it wasn't the most exciting race we've seen all year, I wouldn't certainly say it didn't have its merits. And I learned a lot of things by listening to the guys talking and bringing up things for me to ponder as I'm watching the race. And I think there were a lot of takeaways from this race about a lot of different things that we can put on our regular show on Wednesday nights and discuss them and break them down then. But it wasn't a loss to me. The day wasn't ill spent watching it. Like I said, but my driver was in the hunt the whole day. So that definitely gave me more to cheer about than if I was a Kyle Busch fan. So
you don't have to be a Kyle Busch fan to only watch one pass for the lead the entire race to not enjoy it. I mean, that's just where I'm at with it. There was literally a 5-lap span to where there was one battle for the lead, and after that it was nothing, either before or after. And I think that just really what ended up killing it. And you mentioned Larson, running third. He ran third the entire race. There was nobody competing for Larson in third. Right. It was just there was no movement in the top 5.
He finished 18, 19, 20 seconds behind Elliott, who finished 5 seconds behind Reddick. So that's it. But if you got up this morning, the F1 race was a better race this week than the NASCAR race. It was a good the battle for third between Leclerc and Hamilton. It was great to see Hamilton. Or am I doing something wrong, Joe?
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't tell you won.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. He's only had 13 hours to watch it, Steve. Don't be sorry.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it by now, the hell with you. Did you watch the IndyCar race?
No. It was on at the same time.
They take naps and sleep?
It was on at the same time.
No, they weren't. One was on at 6:30, one was on at 9:30, and the 12:30 was the NASCAR race.
Pacific time.
6:30 is Pacific time. Give 3 hours to those numbers. It was on at 6:30 Pacific time on ESPN, 9:30 on NBC for the IndyCar race, and USA had the IndyCar or the NASCAR race at 12:30. Perfect.
No, I did.
We got in the pool today. We got out and played with the dogs in the pool this afternoon.
No, I didn't watch the IndyCar race either.
Well, you got to quit taking naps and sleeping your life away, Joe.
I know.
He did have monkeypox or rhinocephalitis, so I mean, he does get one nap this week. So,
right.
But we appreciate you tuning in for this show. Again, we will be on Wednesday, and both of these shows are powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet to find an online sports book or casino that's right for you. My name is Ryan Peters, and with me, Joe and Steve. We all appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good week, and happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.